This is the Journey Podcast. We highlight the journeys of our guests, where they've been, where they are now, and where they are going. Let's join them on their journey. Welcome to the Journey Podcast. Today we have a special guest with us today, Quinten Coblentz. I've known Quinten a number of years, been able to work with him on a number of projects, wearing some other hats and some other lives that I've lived alongside of Quinten. And Quinten is a part of several different projects, but he has Quinten Coblentz Music and Rooftop Audio. And it's always a pleasure to be with Quinten. And I was going back in kind of my personal library with you, Quinten. I remember I got to be a part of one of your YouTube videos. Well, I wasn't in it. I got to be behind the scenes with Spacewalk. And so the viewers should go check out Spacewalk. I just went and watched that right before the episode. And I was like, oh, yeah, what happened to everybody? But I know where you're at. So
tell you what, that is a testament to the evolution of a business model. The what it looked like a couple years ago is so different than what it looks like now. But that was really fun though.
Absolutely, yeah. So tell our audience what your business is, what you do. Tell us about Quinten Coblentz.
Yeah. Well, hey, thank you for having me on this. This is exciting. Yeah. So Quinten Coblentz Music LLC is the catch-all for my music business, everything that I do. Rooftop Audio is sort of a segment of that is dedicated to specifically engineering services, mixing and mastering. But what I do full-time is music production, songwriting, and engineering to varying degrees, depending on the week, depending on the day. It'll be more of one, more of the other, but that's what I do every day. I'm doing music in some capacity. So pretty exciting.
So how does somebody like you come into this role you're in? It seems like a highly competitive business, engineering, music, but it's like what everybody wants to be when they grow up, right? Kinda. I don't know if everybody does, but how did you get to where you're at?
Yeah, very, very gradually, and it definitely interesting in that, like, being from Ohio and being specifically small town Ohio, coming out of high school. I graduated high school in 2012. I wanted to do music. I had absolutely no connections in the music business, like that just, there's not exactly a huge thriving music industry in Hartville, Ohio. At least not yet.
We have one.
So I went to this school in Southern Ohio. It's called the Recording Workshop. It's in Chillicothe, and they have a 5-week really intense program that I did that fall, where it was just basically every day you're in the studio with instructors, with the classmates, and you're just kind of hands-on, having to learn to engineer recording sessions, learning how to mix, learning how to basically make something sound good. It wasn't so much about the creative part of music. It was more so about the technical side of it, and just getting a really strong foundation to, like, okay, well, know how to do something the right way and let that inform your creative decisions. And so I did that and came home and still had no connections in the business. So I was like, all right, well, I bought a Mac and started, just gradually working on trying to make some, beats and mixes, and just really practicing a lot. I was just working a regular job. And honestly, the first thing that I did business wise and relationship wise is I just started getting on Twitter. I would every week spend some time just going on Twitter and trying to find people who had like something about being an indie musician or indie rapper or Christian rapper in their, in their bio description, and trying to, not in a spammy way, just reach out to people and make some connections, and like, hey, I'm trying to connect with people. Do you want a free beat? Just trying to, do something. And most of that, most of that doesn't work great, but I did meet a few people that way. And so basically over the course of the years, I mean, it's some of that. It's entering in contests. I entered in a remix contest at the end of 2013 for Andy Mineo, who, if you don't know who that is, he's a very prominent Christian rapper
on my playlist.
So. Yeah, and I actually I was one of the 5 winners selected in that contest, and that didn't translate into what I initially thought it might. Like, I didn't have any contact with Andy or his label, but it was good, just like visibility for me, kind of getting my name out a little bit for the first time. And I met some people through the contest that I would go on and work with for the next couple years and start to build with and produce for and stuff like that. So I don't know how detailed you want me to be, like, as far as
well, and I think for the audience, you've worked with some pretty heavy hitters to this point, and I would say you're from 2012 to 2022, so just a decade of experience here. Been able to just move your career along there, working with RMG Amplify in 2018. But you've worked with on projects with like Shylin and Daraj. And then just most recently on a Casting Crown song, you worked with that as well. But also you're a part of a Dove Award winner. Maybe speak to us a little bit about that, how that came about.
Yeah, that's crazy as well. So to tell that, basically, to back up to let's back up to like 2019, like early 2019. I had gone, actually 2018 was when I went full time as a musician. Summer of 2018, I quit my other job, and I was like, all right, it's close. Like, am I going to make enough? But I had a lot of mixing clients at that point. At that point, that was the thing that was paying the bills, was mixing for people. And just for the viewers that might not know what that means, mixing versus production. So production is going to more so have to do with the creative parts of the music making process. And especially in hip hop, producer is kind of synonymous with beat maker. You make the beat, you make the music, right? And then the rapper or the singer gets on and does the vocals and all that stuff. Mixing is going to be just taking what somebody else has created and making it sound good, blending it right, EQing it right, compressing it right. So it's a service that is not part of the creative process. It's more of you hire somebody, pay them up front, they do the job. And then there's no like back end royalties or anything with that. But that was what was paying the bills. That was what made me able to go full time. So I started mixing for an artist by the name of Roy Tosh. Roy Tosh is super dope. See, he was managed at the time by this guy, Wes, goes by Wes Ryder. And Wes hit me up the one day, it was like late summer of 2019, and it was like, hey, just so you know, I'm actually a full-time songwriter as well as being a manager and all this stuff. So I'm trying to pitch some songs to KB right now, and let me know if you have any beats. So I made something that very day or the next day. Like I was gonna, I've been a fan of KB since I was a teenager. So and that just turned into a really great relationship with me and Wes. We found that we really worked together well, and he ended up having me fly down a couple weeks later, and I stayed at his place. We worked on some stuff. We went to KB's studio, met him, and started pitching songs. Initially, we was like, okay, well, we'll see if we can, kind of get at least one song to land for the album, and we ended up working on. I think I worked on 5 songs for the album, and Wes worked on like 6 or 7.
Were you there like the whole time, like pinching yourself, like, is this really happening? Like, this is new experience here.
It was very surreal. Like, KB and just the whole Christian hip hop genre, was something that I'd been like. It was very foundational in my life as a teenager, both on the musical side, being inspired to like become a producer and stuff like that, but also just from a spiritual sense, and just like the music always encouraged me and really like spoke to me in a powerful way. And so yeah, to be there, to be in the studio, working with KB on this album was it was bizarre, honestly. At first I was very shy, I was very quiet the first the first time in the studio there. I kind of let Wes do the talking, and I'm just kind of like, all right, hi, I'm here too. But I'll speak when spoken to.
Right.
Just like, I'm in the presence of greatness right now. And I was sitting there when we 10K was the first song that we worked on, and right then and there it was like, oh yeah, we got to call. I'm gonna call and see if we can get Matt Redman to clear the sample, and maybe we can even get him on the song, which he ended up performing with KB at the Dev Awards. But yeah, that was crazy. That turned into a really cool thing and a really cool relationship, just with KB, and we're very close with him, both Wes and I, at this point. And so fast forward to the Dove Awards, the album was nominated for Hip Hop Album of the Year, and we were invited to go. We got to take our wives, and it was super fun. And we were like, all right, I mean, we're probably not going to win. We're up against Lecrae and some other big names, but this is awesome to be there. And then they called our name. They called the name of the album "His Glory Alone," and next thing I knew, we were up there, and that was insanely surreal. Looking out at a huge like arena just full of people and all these cameras and stuff, and I was like, okay, this is too much for an Ohio boy right now.
Right. Which, and I wanted to mention, I haven't talked to you since then. I watched the video, and I'm going to put a shot up there for those who watched this on the YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. But your suit, fantastic.
Thank you so much. You know what? I was feeling the pressure. I was like, man, if there is a chance I'm going to be on TV, like I gotta,
like, what do you wear?
Right? Yeah. I was on Pinterest, and I was like going through, like trying to find inspiration, and
you can't show up in a hoodie, You're like,
no, not for the Devil Awards. So, yeah.
So tell us a little bit. What's one thing in your venture so far that happened that you really didn't expect? Maybe it was working with KB, but there's got to be something else.
Yeah. I mean, definitely the aforementioned things. Working with the likes of KB, working with, or having the Dove Award thing happen. The Dove Award was something that was like I would say a bucket list thing for me, but that I wasn't necessarily sure like if it would really happen, especially kind of coming up in more of the hip hop community, which is a smaller market within Christian music, and is you know what I mean. There's just sometimes fewer opportunities in that specific market. So to have that happen was crazy. But I would say one of the things that I didn't expect, kind of in a general sense, was being able to do all this stuff while still working from home here in small town Ohio. I kind of had a perception coming up that, all right, if I'm serious about being a musician, I'm probably going to have to move to one of the major cities to Nashville or to Atlanta or LA or somewhere, right? New York, somewhere where there's more opportunity, right? Because I didn't think there was opportunity here. And I've been amazed at how opposite it is right, for me. I'm right here working from home every day. I travel some, but it's been amazing to me, a pleasant surprise at how much I can do from right here. And it helped me out a lot when COVID hit. Like, I was already prepared in a sense with having a remote workflow and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So
the advent of the internet.
yeah,
That is actually, we've talked to quite a few guests who really their business was already in that remote place already pre-COVID.
yeah,
And I think people are kind of tired, like, how did COVID affect you? And so it's not
yeah,
something we've really focused on the journey. But on
sure.
the other hand, it's really interesting to hear people like, we've been doing this for 5 years, 10 years. This was just a part of our workflow. We were ready to do it. And I'm starting to think, maybe those are the only ones who are still in existence. Everybody else went out of business because they weren't even prepared in any way. And that's been just really interesting to see. Everybody has a workflow, but they already had it pre-established before that even happened. They were ready for this advent to happen. So tell us, what's a common myth about what you do? And you do production, you still do some mixing, I would assume. There's that still pays the bills a little bit. You do some vocal audio work. So what's a common myth about what you do?
So I think probably, at least I would say, one of the most common myths that I feel like people have about being an independent full-time musician who's not working with Jay-Z or Ariana Grande or like the hugest names, right? The perception would be there's no money in the music business unless you're working with those people.
Right.
That, all right, you can get by, you can squeeze out enough to cover the bills, but you're going to have a really hard time actually really having any sort of profitable career in music unless you get lucky enough to just work with enormous global superstars.
Right, because you're living in your mom's basement, right?
Right. I'm not, but yeah. Just for clarification, this is my basement. No, but that's the perception. You're a full-time musician living. You're going to be. You know what I mean? People are going to kind of expect that, oh man, like, you're probably not doing that well, are you?
Right.
And
you're probably work at Burger King too, right?
Yeah. And granted, that's how it starts. That was the first number of years for me from 2012 to 2018. Yes. I mean, I had to do other stuff to pay the bills, and I was working on developing a clientele. But the thing that people don't realize is that music, there is way more opportunity than you realize, and especially in the realm of sync licensing. Sync licensing is something that I did not know anything about coming into the music business. Simply what it is, it's music being synchronized to some sort of video content. So that could be an advertisement, that could be a TV show scene, could be a movie or movie trailer. But
we use sync. We use those catalogs for the Journey podcast.
Exactly. For a podcast. Yes. A podcast might pay a licensing fee to use a instrumental track as the intro music, or a stinger, at different points in the podcast, or you might pay somebody to make something custom, but that's all under the realm of sync licensing. People do not realize how much money is in sync licensing. And the thing about sync licensing is it doesn't matter if you're not famous. It does not matter if you have 5 followers on Instagram. You can make money in sync licensing because it's about the quality of the content that you make, not about your brand. So major corporations have no problem paying $10,000 on the low end for a license for a song or an instrumental for their ad or for a TV show or movie. These corporations, they spend so much money on these ads and on these TV shows. Like, there's a lot more opportunity than people think. Now, granted, you got to do your time and you got to kind of build the relationships to get into the circles that allow you to sort of present your music for this type of stuff. But you play your cards right, you build good relationships. People would be really surprised how much opportunity there is for somebody like me who works from home, is just making music all day, to then send that music somewhere and have it potentially end up in, a nationwide advertisement or in a TV show. So
It's the same journey as probably any entrepreneur is going to go through. You have to do the work and you have to be willing to do the long hours
yes.
to get yourself there. So tell us, what is the biggest challenge you're facing in your business and how are you overcoming it right now?
Yeah. For me right now, the most difficult thing I think is just the constant battle of time management, time allocation, choosing what projects to prioritize, what to spend your time on, what projects to pass on. I'm very thankful to be at a point where there's quite a bit of demand for my time right now, be it from some of the good visibility of like the Dove Award, obviously, or on the sync licensing side, I've been able to get some bigger placements that people have seen, and all of that contributes to just sort of credibility. And so I get a lot of opportunities to work on stuff, but obviously there is a fixed amount of time in the day and you can't do everything. And one of the tricky things is in the music business, there are sort of two different main types of money, right? There is the short-term money that you get, when you mix a song or when you produce a record, if they pay you anything up front, right? But then there's the long game of publishing royalties and also sync licensing fees. Like if you make a song that goes out into a music library, you might not get paid anything up front, but then anytime it gets used, there's going to be money coming back to you eventually, but it sometimes takes a really long time. So choosing how to manage the should I take this job? Should I work today on this job that I know will pay me this amount, this week? Or should I invest in my time in this job that won't pay me anything right now, but could pay me way more down the road when it comes to publishing? And that's kind of the tricky thing, is you have to sort of strike a good balance where you're doing enough of the short-term projects to pay the bills and to keep a good, steady revenue stream coming in, but then you're not neglecting the big picture and the scalability for your income down the road, because the publishing is where the scalability comes in, and obviously it being passive is a huge plus because that's taxed at a lower rate. So in a perfect world, you really want to work to transition as much of your income as possible into passive royalties and stuff. So that's probably the biggest challenge, is just the wisdom to navigate that dilemma of what to spend your time on.
Yeah, and that definitely maybe picking, or I'm probably going to be doing more of that. I'm going to get that money today early on. And then, as you get more royalty built up, you have the time to pick and choose. And that just takes time for you.
It does.
Yeah.
It takes faith too. Like the time.
A lot of faith. Yeah.
When you decide that, I'm going to invest like 2 weeks working on a whole project that's going to go into a music library, and I'm not going to make any money right now.
Yeah.
And I might not make anything from this project for a year or a year and a half, but down the road, and once the publishing kicks in, once they start collecting royalties from the other side of the world, if your song ends up getting used a whole bunch in India, it's going to take like a year and a half probably for all of that stuff to trickle back to you. But by the time it does, you might be very glad that you did it. So
and you're probably ahead of the curve. That's the new thing now is NFTs, and that really connects in well with what you're talking about. And people are starting to realize like this long-term investment, it's not about getting about what I can get right now, but how am I going to prepare myself long-term in that planning? And it's definitely great. I think it's a good culture shift from people understanding how to actually build more of a future for themselves and trying to get something that they can get right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what would you say is the most important lesson you've learned over your career so far?
I think I would not be where I am and have built the network of relationships that I have without just really placing a high emphasis on valuing people. The music business, like so many other businesses, it really is going to come down to your reputation and what people think of you when they interact with you. Are they going to want to work with you again? Are they going to tell somebody else that they had a good experience working with you and recommend you? Because especially going back to my process of building relationships, I started with no relationships in the music business. I started by literally just messaging people on Twitter and trying to meet some people, and I'd give them a free beat or a free mix or something just to sort of offer them something to show what I can do. But you really, if you value people, if you treat people like a priority, and they have a good experience working with you, you never know what it can lead to. There are times where you do a project with somebody and you don't think it's like going to lead to anything, but then it turns out that person might recommend you to somebody who recommends you to somebody who recommends you to somebody, and it just goes down the line. And that's been the process for me of getting that's what led me to get into the RMG Amplify circle, which that was how I met Wes, which that was how we got to work on KB's project and all these different things. All that also led to me getting into sync licensing, because I met this guy Jesse Chambers from the company Music Makers that I do a lot of work with as well. And so it is very much relationship based, and it's about being able to go through the business with integrity and with again, making people feel like you respect them and you've honored them. So I think that's a universal principle to apply to pretty much any business, but definitely true in mine.
So what would you say, in your opinion, is the most important personality strength somebody would need to have to do what you do?
Yeah, definitely focus. And whether, some people are gifted with focus, like being naturally good at focus. Other people have to learn it. Whatever the case is, as a full-time musician, you can get unstructured very quickly. That's a trap that's easy to fall into when you are not clocking in and you don't have a boss looking over your shoulder.
Yeah.
And especially in the music business, it's very much like your assets are your projects, are your ideas, are your all these different songs. It's easy to get really inspired and start an idea, then kind of lose steam with it and just not come back to it. And then the next thing you know, you've got a folder where there's 100 unfinished songs or instrumental tracks or all these things. Those things could be out somewhere making you money potentially, but if you don't have the organization and the focus to follow through and get your stuff finished, even if you don't feel inspired to, you're gonna limit what you're able to accomplish, because you have all these assets that you're not following through on. So focus, organization, and commitment to push through sometimes, even if you don't feel inspired, because there's something there. So
do you have like a professional mentor, or who has been the most important professional mentor in your business or your job there?
I've had a lot. There've been a lot of people who at different points in my career have really like invested time in me, like from an advice standpoint, from a teaching standpoint, just from an encouragement standpoint. So one of the first mentors I'd say that I had in the music business was Karen Jules, who shout out to Karen. She's up in Toronto. This was back like when this was like 2013, 14, 15. So sort of that like pocket of time. I was part-time. I was trying to start producing. I was messing around with writing songs, and she really invested time in me and just helping me develop confidence. My friend Daraj has been a great mentor for me. We've worked on a lot of music together, but when it started, I was like this little nobody, whatever, and he was a signed artist, and so he really kind of extended an opportunity for me to come and work with him, and he really, like, again, invested in me along the way. Doc Watson from RMG, my time as an artist with RMG Amplify, he definitely invested in me. Obviously Wes is my official business partner with We Are the Good for the last 2 years, and we've spent a ton of time together, and he's been an incredible mentor and business partner for me and friend. My friend YB, is a guy that he's the kind of guy, he'll just hit me up just to see how I'm doing. He's not even trying to work right now. Like, he just, hey, how are you doing? Like, tell me how like what's been happening. And I always appreciate that. That's so such a blessing. And then even like locally here, Zion, Birdsong, really invested in my confidence back when I was really working on trying to be a performer, which I'm not a performer now, but the lessons I learned from that time are definitely a part of who I am now and my confidence as a business person. Nate, you invested in me as with your role as helping me book shows, and again the confidence in just what I can bring to the table and what I can accomplish. So I'm just thankful for every person along the way. I'm sure I'm missing people, but like I'm just thankful for every person who's taken the time.
And where should they email you if you missed the
yeah direct your complaints to
hate mail at I definitely appreciate that. Thank you. And so what's one thing about your job or your expertise that absolutely, like, most people don't agree with you about? Like, this is unique to Quinten, and they're kind of like, oh, he's gonna do that again.
There's a couple things that I would say for sure are not totally unique to me, but maybe I'm in the minority with. I structure my work days much more like a 9 to 5 than what you would imagine a typical musician does. I think the sort of stereotypical musician is going to just sort of follow the inspiration. It's like, oh, you know what? I'm inspired and it's 2 a.m. I'm going to go and start recording a song and, work from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. And then I'm going to, sleep till whatever, like just kind of be all over the place, just sort of loosey-goosey. That's not me. I really, early on in my career, once I went full time, I really wanted to make the commitment to shut down for the day at the end of the workday. So 5 p.m. or whatever it is, to shut down and be present at home for the rest of the evening. And so unless I'm like on a trip somewhere, I don't generally work evenings or nights at all. Like I work my 9 to 5 and then I shut down for the day. And that's something you have to learn when you're a creative person who there's times where you have a hard time winding down if you're inspired. And so that's something that I've kind of done consciously. And I think another thing that I'd probably be in the minority with is I'm very analytical with my I don't know how I approach music. It's really funny. Wes and I have a great relationship because I think we complement each other so well. I feel like he is just the definition of a pure, just creative genius who just like he gets these incredible bursts of inspiration that like this isn't the right thing to do, but we should try it. And sometimes it doesn't work, but sometimes it turns into something really cool. I'm more of, he calls me the scientist, right? So I basically, I can kind of analyze a song and really break it down to the ingredients of like, okay, you know what, we want it to feel a certain way. We need to give it the major 1, major 4, minor 6, major 5 chord progression. And like, I'm very analytical like that. Not everybody's like that. Some people, a lot of musicians, I think, go more off of the feeling, whereas I kind of know how to create the feeling based on the science almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's probably a good mix to have as well with that. Yeah.
It's because the thing is, both of us in our way of approaching music would miss out on opportunities if we did not have somebody who had a different approach, like working with us. So that is the beauty of collaboration, is it brings out possibilities that weren't there before. So,
and I wanted to go back a little bit. You were talking about how you structure your day,
mm-hmm.
and that's been a pretty common thread through the Journey podcast, is talking about how we structure our days as business leaders, as entrepreneurs. We had a really interesting guest on here who's a coach for business owners for their relationship. He's a relationship coach,
Mm-hmm.
Corey Rankin. The viewers should go check out. A Christian relationship coach, helping those busy people just really invest back into their marriages. And, you work from home.
Yep.
I don't work from home. There's different reasons for why we do that, but it is hard. I think it would be even harder for me. One of the reasons I don't work from home is I want that separation. I want to walk away from it. I think it'd be very hard for me because I work 24 hours a day. I'm just that type of person. How hard is it for you to, like, it's 5 o'clock or whatever your end time is and walk away from it? Like, is it easy to just keep on going into the evening hours?
It's easier than it used to be, a lot easier than it used to be. And I think there is something to say about the power of habit. Once you have committed something to habit, I've heard a lot of people talk about it in terms of like fitness, like, oh, you're going to have a hard time wanting to work out, but if you can force yourself to do it for 21 days, that's long enough for it to start to become a habit. And then 6 months, it is enough for it to become something that you actually enjoy. And then like once you enjoy it, and you know what I mean? Like it started off as something that you did not want to do, but if you stick with it long enough, it can actually become something that feels very natural for you. So I remember, like, when we first got married, that there were times where, like, I had ideas. I had like, oh man, like, I need to work on this tonight. But I was kind of like paying attention to, my wife never told me not to work in the evening or that I can't, but I could just, it felt sort of just off, like kind of like I was not quite doing what I should be doing. And I just didn't feel right about it. And I just felt like I wasn't being there for her. I wasn't being present. And so I pretty early on just felt like I need to just commit to doing this, at least for the vast majority of the time. There are exceptions where, if I have a deadline, sometimes I'll have a opportunity to submit a track, something original for like a commercial. And sometimes that's a 24-hour deadline where it's like, you got to put in some extra time. So I'll do that. But for the most part, having done it for a number of years now, I feel like 5 o'clock hits, and there are times where I'm like, oh, okay, you know what? Maybe I'll go 10 minutes over. I'll go 15 minutes over, whatever, to finish last little thing. But once it hits that shut off, it's like my brain is kind of trained for it, to where it's like, you know what? I accomplished what I could today. Today's over. Goodbye.
There's always
You know what I mean?
tomorrow, right?
There's always tomorrow. But it's something you have to learn. It wasn't natural to me.
Build that foundation.
Yeah.
From day one. Yeah.
It was something that, again, it just, to me, it felt like it was important enough to just make it a non-negotiable. And when I'll have clients, sometimes I'll be like getting a phone call in the evening, and if I absolutely have to take it, I will. But for the most part, we can talk tomorrow.
Yeah. Probably not a lot of emergencies in your line of business.
There are, but a lot of times they're not emergencies that can't be taken care of first thing in the morning.
Correct. Nobody's gonna bleed out. So
yeah, nobody, exactly. So a lot of times it's a convenience emergency.
Right.
Oh, can you send me this? Well,
so you talked about talking about that creative process. I'm fascinated. Like, how do you even start with inspiration? And we all get inspired to do the creative things that we do. We're all creative in our own ways. Hey, I need you to make a beat for XYZ. And I don't even, if the client doesn't even know where to start, how do you even start?
Yeah. Well, definitely it is difficult when there's not, there are times where, like you get a request for something and it's like, we want something cool and current, but maybe they don't say anything more than that. And so you do have to use some guesswork. But sometimes they'll provide you with like references. Somebody be like, hey, we like the energy in this song. They'll send a Spotify link. We also like the way the drums feel in this song, and sometimes there's reference points where you can take some inspiration and try to blend it together. But for me, there's a couple different ways I can get started. Sometimes it's a matter of just sitting down, opening a session and starting to just play through some different sounds on the keyboard and try to find something that strikes me and that just makes me like kind of hear something I can build off of. But other times, this is another way that I'm kind of unusual, is that sometimes I almost get my best ideas by stepping away and just sort of like thinking for a while, just sort of clearing my head and then just kind of like thinking in my head, like, what would a good finished product sound like? How could I hear it? Where do I hear it going? And then once I kind of have an idea of where I feel like it should go, I can kind of like, okay, well, what would be the first thing that I would do? Okay, it would be a guitar part, and then I lay that guitar part down, or so not everybody works that way. But that's kind of how it is for me. And there are times, there have been a number of times where like Daraj has been up here, staying at my place. We've been working, and we feel like we get stuck or something. And for me, the most helpful thing is like, I'm just going to go out and just take a walk real quick. I'm just going to like circle the block and just clear my head and start thinking. And more often than not, by the time I get back, I've got an idea. So that's just kind of how it works for me a lot of the time.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, here's one of my fun questions.
All right.
What occupation other than your own would you like to try?
I really like writing. When I was in high school, when I was sort of juggling this, like, oh, do I really think that I can make a career in music? Should I do something else? What's my fallback? I honestly considered taking, doing some college for something in the journalism writing sphere, just because that's interesting to me. I feel like I'm not a numbers guy, I'm a words guy. So probably part of why songwriting is something that I enjoy. Anything with words, right? So I'd love to write a book someday. I think that'd be super cool. I don't know what about, I don't have any like burning passion of like, oh yes, this is the book I'm going to write someday. But I'm like, I like writing. So, if I get the chance at some point to do some writing, that'd be sweet. I'd enjoy it. But, yeah. So
I will look forward to reading your books. So,
yeah, whatever they end
yeah,
up
the
being.
journey of Quinten Coblentz. There's
Yeah,
your first one. So
exactly.
So, Quinten, thanks for being on the Journey podcast today. I got a couple of rapid fire questions here at the end.
Okay.
What are 3 books you'd recommend to my audience and why?
Well, all right. Gonna sound cliche, but I mean, my number one pick is the Bible. And I'm
Awesome.
not saying that because I'm supposed to say that as a
Great
good
book.
Christian boy, but like legitimately, I enjoy reading, commentary books and like scriptural teaching books and stuff like that. But for me, at least in this point in my life, there's no substitute for just actually reading the Bible for yourself and letting it speak on its own. I just find that when I'm grounded in consistently reading from the scriptures, I just feel like I make better decisions. I feel like I feel better. I'm in a better mindset about life, more focused. It's just, for me, it's a very important part of my routine, and it's not just a routine, but granted, like I feel like everything that I'm doing is going to kind of come from my relationship with God. And so nothing better than, letting him speak for himself right from the scriptures, rather than relying on somebody to have to always interpret it for me or explain it to me. So
Yeah.
that would be number one. And number two, Rich Dad Poor Dad is a book that I really found helpful on the business and finance side. Just very, very much changed the way I was thinking about money when I read it. I think I only read it like a year ago or so, and I was like, oh wow, yeah, I've been thinking about money, I think, the wrong way. So check that out for sure if you're interested in finance and just operating a business.
Yeah. Good book.
And then I'm honestly not a huge reader in general. Like I have a hard time finishing books. I'll start a book that someone recommends, but I have a hard time like following through and just like sitting down and finishing. But one thing I will say, if you're somebody like me who doesn't really who has a hard time reading a lot of books, take advantage of YouTube. Like YouTube is can be so much more than mindless entertainment. So if you are intentional about subscribing to YouTube channels, or following pages on social media that posts content that is going to educate or mentally stimulate you in some sense, where you're actually gaining something from it. I love being able to, like, just on a lunch break, if I can go to YouTube and there's a new video from one of my channels I've subscribed to, and it's something that's not just mindless, I can actually glean something from. That's a great thing that I can just spend 10 minutes or 15 minutes during lunch, being entertained, but also like having some depth to it. And it's something.
Yeah, and if I can recommend one channel to go subscribe to, it would be The Journey on YouTube. So
yeah, I hear The Journey is pretty it's pretty good.
It is pretty good. A lot of inspirational stories on there and stuff. So
that's what I'm hearing.
Yes. So all right. Another rapid fire question. I'm starting a business today. What's one word of wisdom you would give me?
I think you need to keep an open mind for opportunities to evolve. So for me, the focus of my business has had to shift quite a bit and multiple times over the years. At one point, my business was primarily a mixing and mastering service. At another point in time, I was a beat making service where I was like, actually, I had signed up for a site where I could put my beats up and people from all over could like lease it and stuff. That was going to be my new business model for a while. I was actually marketing myself as a recording artist, and I was doing shows and all that stuff. So at different points, I've kind of evolved my business model to try to seize the most opportunity that I saw at that time. And you got to be careful with it, because you don't want to just be like, a bag in the wind that just, anytime you're just constantly reinventing the wheel. And, you got to stay true to your general goals, but be open-minded for how you can adapt depending on what opportunities or challenges you might be facing. So yeah.
Awesome. So I've asked you a lot of questions today, Quinten. I appreciate you being on the Journey podcast, but is there maybe one question I didn't ask that you wish I would have asked?
I'd say, oh, well, you could say, as far as upcoming stuff, that I'm working on to maybe watch out for, I can't say much. I was telling you about this before we started, but I am working on writing some songs for a movie right now, which is pretty cool. So I can't say much. It's going to be a like late 2022, most likely.
Star Wars.
It's not Star Wars. It's not
Oh!
quite that big, but it's a big deal for me because I love movies. So
Yeah.
to work on a movie, like an actual movie, is really fun.
We're going to get copyright infringement now for saying Star Wars.
I mean, you mean space battles?
Yes.
I love those movies. Space battles.
Space battles.
And the
All right.
Revengers.
Yes.
So yeah, stay tuned for that. When it's going to be a while before anything public comes out, but
fantastic. Well, tell our audience where they can find you online so they can see about your upcoming projects and how they can engage with you and your work.
Most definitely. Best place to really be connected with me and what I'm doing would be Instagram. I'm not very active on Facebook or Twitter at this point, but I do post updates on Instagram, and you can always hit me with a DM there. I'm on Instagram under it's at Quinten Coblentz Music, and then Spotify and Apple Music, I'm on there just under Quinten Coblentz. You'll see there's songs from back when I was being a recording artist and all that stuff. The latest thing that I've released actually is an instrumental orchestral like cinematic project called Scores Volume 1. And this is a sync licensing project that I made in partnership with a company called Artlist. So check it out. I'm getting into scoring. I'd love to score a movie someday, so you can hear the dream in that project. And I've also got a production playlist on my Spotify that you should be able to see if you scroll down, where it's just a whole bunch of stuff that I've worked on as a producer, because you'll find a lot more content there than in my artist catalog. So, and then my website, QuintenCoblentzmusic.com. You can also check that out. That's sort of a one place to see everything. So, yeah.
Well, Quinten Coblentz, thanks for being with us on the Journey podcast. Go check out his website, check out his social media handles, and follow it there. You'll certainly find something that you enjoy. And every once in a while, my Spotify will randomly generate one of your old songs, and they'll be like, oh, yeah, so jamming it out with an oldie but a goodie there with Quinten Coblentz. Thanks so much being on the Journey podcast today. We appreciate your time.
Hey, it's my absolute pleasure. Thank you once again for having me. This is a lot of fun. So excited about what you're doing here with the Journey, and excited to keep listening.
Thank you.